Welcome everyone to the 2019 Mazda 3 hatchback. I've already tested out the sedan version of this car and I was thoroughly impressed, but with this car I wanted to do something a little bit different because I want to compare it to this. This is the 2018 Mazda 3 hatchback, my own personal car. I've owned this car for almost a year now, so it's given me a great opportunity to really dive deep into the Mazda experience, and there's a few reasons why I really wanted to own this vehicle that carry over into this one as well. But for this generation, Mazda has radically changed a few things whilst keeping the core fundamentals of what made this Mazda 3 so good and bringing it up to speed to the current competition, but additionally those that are in the segment above it. So what we're going to do today is take the new 3 and my 3 for a bit of a comparative drive, see what they're like right beside each other, what their major differences are, and what their major similarities are as well. And at the end of the video, I really want to find out, as an owner, do I notice the upgrades? Does it feel like a more premium experience? So I think we're going to start in this car first of all, get a brief overview of it, and then talk about all of the differences in these two cars. To touch upon the changes for the new Mazda 3 will certainly be quite a long list, but this 3 is the first to be riding upon the new modular platform Mazda plans to use for all of their future products. It's longer and lower than the previous car, with a very strong focus towards reducing NVH. Smaller touches to this new vehicle are the new type font used everywhere on the car, throughout the infotainment system, and even on the company's website, and the much more aggressive exterior stance. And for the first time ever, it now comes with the option of all-wheel drive. I wanted to own a Mazda 3 because I really loved the way it looked, and I admire this design even more so for the 2019 model. I'm keen to see where this latest design language goes with all of the upcoming Mazda products. A price hike over the base cars, both of them denoted as the GXs, goes for about $1,500. So is this extra money justified? Well, that's another question I intend to answer. So before I really get into the nitty-gritty of comparables between my car and this one, let's talk about the example that I'm driving right now with this 2019 Mazda 3. It's the hatchback, of course, and Mazda denotes them as the sports for whatever reason. Going from the hatchback to the sedan is about a $3,200 upgrade throughout the range. This is the top trim GT with all-wheel drive. It has a 2.5 litre four-cylinder engine that produces 186 horsepower and the same number for torque. The all-wheel drive system is a front-wheel drive biased all-wheel drive system, so it's helping you out to get off the line on slippery conditions, but there's no way to alter this drivetrain. There's no way to lock out one differential or make it a rear-wheel drive only vehicle. The most that the power will send to the rear is 50%. There's no way currently to get the 6-speed manual with the all-wheel drive system, strictly the 6-speed automatic for the time being, and you can only get the manual in the hatchback version of the Mazda 3. For long-time viewers of the channel, you'll know that my 2017 Mazda 3 was originally blue. And here we're looking at a 2018 model in white. There's a very good reason why I had to switch cars, and maybe one of these days I'll share that story out on the internet. But let's skip by that and talk about this car after I have lived with it for about 10 months now and put 16,000 kilometers on its odometer. This is the mid-level GS trim. It has the 2-litre naturally aspirated four-cylinder engine with front-wheel drive mated to this 6-speed transmission. There's 3 primary reasons why I went out and got this Mazda. One, I wanted a hatchback, I wanted it with a manual, and I was really quite interested in how this Mazda looked and the reviews that it was getting online. This car is really how I got into the world of automotive journalism. Mazda to me has always just been a brand that seems to do a lot of things really quite well, despite their size and their power in the industry, they're able to make some very compelling cars in their ultra competitive segments. This is the top trim currently for the Mazda 3, the signature model that exists in the Mazda 6 and the CX-9 and the CX-5. I think could find itself here as well. We could probably get some sexier, more expensive materials. We might be able to get maybe a different look, larger wheels, that kind of thing. But the GT trim is very comparable to those signature models. Lots of leather here on the steering wheel, on the seats, and it appears that this front brace, just where this large air vent is, stretches all the way along the dashboard. To me, feels like a real leather, and you'll find it here in the door cards as well. The soft touch plastics are pretty much everywhere else on top of the door cards, and then this huge portion all the way across the dashboard. If that was in the same leather appointments that you'd find in a BMW or an Audi, that would really sell the final notion that this is a vehicle competing against those German brands. Some of the exclusive GT trim includes the 18-inch wheels, the premium Bose sound system, which in a lot of other Mazdas I've been able to test out this Bose system, and this is the first time it's actually impressed me. Previously, I just kind of thought there was nothing worth mentioning, but here it's actually really quite good. Here with the black exterior looks, if you remember what I had with the sedan, that grille and the big chrome strip across the face of the car is blacked out. I think the biggest difference for the two generations of this car is how it's put together on the inside. Yes, the overall design language is different. With my Mazda, you could use the touchscreen and the rotary wheel. Here, you only can use the rotary wheel. This 8.8-inch standard screen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is a little out of reach for good reason. Mazda wanted to kill the touchscreen, thinking that it's a bit too distracting of a system. You take your eyes off of the road too long to try and access this system when you're waving your hands about. But with this new style of rotary wheel that falls very easily to hand and is very easy to learn, this can be a way to take your eyes off of the road for less time. You're really going to notice the difference in the car's interior layout. Just having this touchscreen kind of being the only central element above the air vents in this car gives an easy look out to the bonnet and everything else on the outside, but it kind of feels a little bit empty. I love the new Mazda setup with a huge instrument binnacle with those two side air vents, kind of like you're in a jet fighter's cockpit or like a single-seater vehicle, and then giving the passenger their own dedicated air vents. It is a little bit dark in here, not really anything to accent the space. There's a few touches of chrome and plastic, but it's far from an exciting environment. The cloth seats that we have here are utterly brilliant. For long highway drives, I've done a 6-hour stint in this car and really don't have much to complain about. Of course, I'd like a little more thigh support, but just in this seating position that I have, I feel like I can rest my feet flat and getting into a position that's more than comfortable on a long drive. Things that I've really noticed stepping out of the new car and into this one is that there feels like there's a lot less greenhouse in the new Mazda comparative to this. The roof line in both of them are low, and the seating position that I have in this car and in that one are in their lowest positions, but the new one does feel tighter with the reduced glass. For the driving experiences, although mine is a 2-liter engine with a 6-speed manual and front-wheel drive, whilst this has the larger 2.5, an automatic and all-wheel drive, it feels like both of them go to the same church. They have the same beliefs for their driving dynamics. They act very similar when you're pushing them hard, when you're cruising through town. They don't feel radically different, and that is a very good thing. The brakes in this new Mazda are fantastic. Solid pedal, really flat movement, no braking dive at all. The steering on both of these cars is light and accurate. And although my Mazda doesn't have a sport mode, the automatics were usually the ones reserved with that little rocker switch. The only differences I can really tell is the transmission holding the gears at a higher RPM and waiting for as long as they can up until the red line to shift gears. the paddles that are behind the steering wheel in this model feel near as good, maybe even better than what they do in something like an Audi. They're made out of plastic, but they feel so rigid here. Neither of them have a sonorous exhaust note. They don't really have much going for them. And one of the biggest pieces of news, one of the headlines for this all-new Mazda with its all-new platform, is that it's now riding on a torsion beam rear suspension system, whilst my car was an independent system. I never bought my Mazda originally because I thought it was comfortable, because I thought it was relaxed. I liked that firm ride. It felt involving. It felt like you were tied down to the road. And this car feels the same without a level of harshness that my Mazda 3 sometimes suffers with. Even though the rear suspension system in this is the more archaic, the cheaper, the easier to build system, I'd actually say that this is handling better on rougher bits of road than my old Mazda. It's not as crashy. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of secondary motions. I would really like to experience one of these cars with 3 pedals and a shifter. Now this car, it's such a pleasure to drive on a fun bit of road. The brake pedal is perhaps a touch softer here than what it is in the new vehicle, but the way that you interact with the shifter, with the ultra light clutch, and a very accurate stick shifter itself makes it a very easy car to drive, but also a very easy manual to learn. When you're at stop and go city traffic, you don't need any throttle input at all. Just a little light feathering with the clutch at that bite point is enough to move you that couple of meters forward in gridlock traffic. When we're comparing the practicality of both of these models, there's a couple elements in my car that I think it does better than this one. For one, the rear seat space feels better in my car with that significant blind spot. It's quite dark back there, and with that more aggressive roofline, I don't feel like I have as much headroom. Rear seat comfort in both of these cars is a little lackluster though. There's no USB ports, there's nothing you can do to change around the climate settings. You don't even have manual vents back there. So when we put these two shots side by side, you'll see that I do appear to have more space in the old generation than I do the new generation, especially for headroom. For the trunk space, my Mazda has a lower loading lip, so if you're carrying heavier items, you'll appreciate that greatly. And as far as I can tell, there isn't a way to hide away the security cover in either of the cars. Both of them have spare wheels though, a good thing to note. I remember when this hatchback was originally shown off, one of the immediate criticisms was the blind spots. Now hatchbacks, they have bigger blind spots than their sedan counterparts, obviously. And I'd never really thought my Mazda 3 was terrible. It wasn't the best, but it was easy to live with. This one, though, is actually a challenge. I picked up this car and I immediately had to join a highway intersection where you have to cross over the highway and sit in that sort of middle laneway section. And I was looking behind me and I seriously couldn't see the cars incoming. I had to rely on the passenger sitting next to me to tell me if I was okay to pull out into the highway. After spending a week with that car now, that problem hasn't improved. Although it's in line with the design of this Mazda, I really think that visibility of this hatchback has suffered significantly to my version. And then when I get back into this car and look behind me, yeah, there's a blind spot, but I can easily judge the space and what could or couldn't be behind me with the assistance of the wing mirrors. The new one, not so much. Even in the base level trim of this all-new Mazda, there's a couple things that I wouldn't have ever been able to get access to in my previous generation vehicle. For example, the 7-inch digital instrument cluster and the 8.8-inch screen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are both standard equipment. Neither of those things were ever available in the base level 3. Again, I knew that my Mazda was perhaps a little noisier in class. It didn't particularly bother me. I didn't buy my Mazda thinking it was the quietest or the most comfortable in its class, and after spending quite a lot of time with it, highway driving can be a little tedious if there's ever an occasion where your USB isn't working or the Bluetooth can't connect. But with this new car and the Apple CarPlay integration system, a lot less can go wrong with Apple CarPlay, I find, especially in the use of so many vehicles that I get to test out. Vehicles that don't come with Apple CarPlay definitely have a detriment to them, in my opinion. Personally, for me, no voice recognition system in any car works for me with my accent. Siri does though, so able to access something like that whilst driving along so I can reply to a message is almost frustration-free. And having something where you can physically plug in your phone and that pop-up menu immediately comes up and you never have to worry about a Bluetooth or a Wi-Fi connection, it's one of the major benefits to Apple CarPlay. A couple common issues I have discovered with this car and my personal car comes with the black plastic applications. Here in this new Mazda, there's a little bit of it just on where the window switches are, and quite a large portion of it down here in this center arrangement with your buttons and your gear knob. This car only has 8,500 kilometers on it. It's been reviewed by plenty of other journalists before me, and the plastic here is already terribly scratched, and I have experienced that in my vehicle as well. Black plastics, yeah, they scratch, they wear down, and they show their age quickly. But this I really think is one of the poorest applications of black plastics that I've seen in cars so far. In this new Mazda 3, if you look a little bit deeper, there is some kind of hexagon pattern underneath the black plastic, but I don't think my camera is able to pick it up so well because it's just focusing on all of the scratches that are in the car instead. Issues that I've had with not this specific vehicle, but the 2017 model that I had, this car has a tire pressure monitoring system, and in that 2017 model, I don't know what was wrong with it, but it was constantly going off. You'd be driving along and the alarm would bleep and the little light would show up, but nothing was wrong. You would hold the button down and it would reset. A few minutes later, it would come back on. It was, it was hardly the end of the world. All you'd have to do is just hit that button when the thing would come on. But it is certainly annoying where a tire pressure monitoring system comes on, or it should be coming on, when something is wrong with the car. But as there wasn't anything wrong with the car in any of the situations where that light came onto the dash, I would always just ignore it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up all of my thoughts between my Mazda 3 and the new one. There's no doubt in my mind that there is a tangible difference in terms of the material quality, the refinement, and just the overall build quality for the interiors of these cars. That aspect of the car feels the most different, but like I said, the fundamental driving experience feels largely the same. They're fun, tossable, but solid. This new Mazda has certainly moved up market whilst keeping the intention of what a Mazda should be thoroughly intact in its core. So if anybody's out there looking to buy a new Mazda 3, you're getting your money's worth, you're paying that premium, and it's going towards a much better vehicle. And so that concludes this video comparison of the new Mazda 3 and the outgoing one. Thank you so much for taking the time to watching this video. Please like it if you liked it and share it if you think other people will like it too. Thanks again. Hope to see you again soon.